I do so enjoy torturing you. Inevitable! You are only delaying the inevitable.
Hello, we are back, now with the power charge transition to the Penance brand Surfcaster. Since the costs for critical uniques have dropped substantially, it's high time to swap. Benefits are we have about 5 times more damage, and there's no more fiddling around with the Dreadreese Flask, because there's no more Righteous Fire. Let's start with the items. Reliquaries and Patience, they are the cornerstone of this build. If you have nothing else, this is the item you should start with. All other items depend on having maximum power charges. So once you have it, you can equip a Militant Faith jewel with the High Templar Dominus, one like this, which gives the Keystone Inner Conviction. Or with 10 power charges, there's 30% more damage. But it has the downside of not being able to get frenzy charges, but that is just countered by having reliquaries. Any number on the jewel is fine in principle, except you want to make sure before buying in your path of building that it does not break nodes that you care about. So for example, in this circle, we have Heart of Ice, Instability, and then also normally here would be a life node. However, I didn't pay attention and bought this and socketed it in, and now I can't use that life node. Now the lines that go with it, so there are 2 lines, you see increased damage per devotion, increased effect of ailments per devotion. There are a couple of lines that you can make use of. That is increased damage, elemental, brand or area damage. It is aura or ailment effect, like you see here, and also all elemental resistances. The Shield Malachai's Loop gives you increased damage and also +2 to maximum power charges. And since it's cheap, you can equip it right after getting Reliquaries. Now, if you have only this, you can farm up. But to continue, you need a 6-link chest. Now, the chest you want to have is a replica Restless Ward. This is an insanely great chest for this build because it gives us 60% movement speed. And it also gives us a sizable amount of life regeneration, 100 to 140. And the downside of having -2 to maximum frenzy charges is completely averted by Badge of the Brotherhood. And you can see I have a +2 on it because it has +2 to level of socketed duration gems. I made this in the Corruption Temple, which we have right here. And you would corrupt a 4-socketed, any socket really, but 4-socketed chest like this. And then you can use tainted currency to 6-link it. That is how I obtained this chest. However, you could also start with a chest that does not have +2 if you're on a budget. You could also start with just a rare chest, any rare chest that is 6-linked, and then scale into this one at a later point. Once you have that chest, you can then equip a Void Battery, swapping from your Bitter Dream into the 6-link setup. Next, you want to get a Badge of the Brotherhood. That makes it so that your maximum frenzy charges is equal to your maximum power charges. It's a pretty substantial increase because you stack a lot of power charges with this setup. And because of Reliquaries, you immediately have the maximum. At maximum of 10, this gives you 40% increased attack and cast speed, as well as just a multiplier of 40% more damage. You want to anoint it with the notable Infused, which gives you a power charge. And this anoint costs 1 crimson and 2 silver oils. Next in line is the Belt, Graven Secret. That gives you another maximum power charge, and it gives you a sizable buff to your lightning resistance. Continuing, Polaric Devastation is a fine option for a unique ring. In your right ring slot, it covers enemies in frost, and frost increases their cold damage taken. It also makes it so that they are much less likely to crit you. An alternative for this is a well-rolled Taming. However, the Polaric Devastation is significantly cheaper than that. Now, for your other ring, you're lacking a heap of resistances, but more importantly, even you have a very high demand for both strength and dexterity attributes. So this is a good place to put it, together with another resistance roll. And lastly, the same is true for the gloves. You want strength and dexterity on there, together with a resistance roll to cap out your resistances. Now on the gloves, you want also add Eldritch Implicits. So I have both min rolls, the Eater of Worlds, converting 10% of my physical damage to lightning. And then also from the Searing Exarch, 15% chance to unnerve enemies on hit. That just completes the damage conversion and also adds the unnerve effect, which makes it so the enemies take even more increased damage. Okay, talking about the tree. You want to have your Uberlap by now, and you also want to kill Kitawa if you haven't already. If you've helped Elira, buy a Book of Reform for +1 skill points instead. So if you vendor an Orb of Regret together with any Onyx amulet, then you get a Book of Reform. You right click this and that changes your bandit favor. Now the biggest change about the tree from the self-ignite setup is that this version is low life again. So we get Plane Attunement. Also, I myself run Mind Over Matter to boost my tankiness. Together with Petrified Blood, you have a massive multiplier on your maximum hit. And the way that this works is you take half of your total life pool because you're on low life. Then you divide it by 0.6 for Mind Over Matter. And then you divide it by 0.6 again for Petrified Blood. And this comes out to about 40% more maximum life as a hit pool than the maximum life on your character. So even though I'm low life, my actual hit pool here would be about 3,300 instead of just the 1,300 that it says here on the left. Notable changes. We want to take all the power charges. This one is anointed. And we also really want to grab, if we haven't already, this physical damage converted to lightning damage wheel, because that frees us from having to use the Fist to lightning support gem. We also dropped most of the reservation nodes over here. And we want to take life again, because the downside of Righteous Fire, of burning maximum life, is no more. So we take these nodes here. This node, if I could take it, I will. Let's talk about skills. We link Penance Brand to Swift Brand, to Conk Effect, Hypothermia, Power Charge on Crit, and Awakened Cold Penetration. Swift Brand is the highest DPS increase, but the downside is that it reduces the duration by 2/3. And that means that this brand vanishes really quickly from any target, and if you haven't killed it, the target won't receive any damage after that. So that means that you need to spam your brands to keep up the damage. For movement speed, shield charge, faster attacks, and flame dash. The permanent auras here are Vitality, Petrified Blood, Hatred, and also On an Arrogance, Herald of Purity. And then the other auras come from your Spectres. We have again the Perfect Pain Artist that gives the Zealotry aura, as well as Critical Strike multiplier. And then we have the Spirit of Fortune that gives us the Wrath aura. We also make use again of a Guardian's Blessing, and we use this on an Animate Guardian. The Animate Guardian needs Gruthkul's Pelt for this to work, for him to survive, and it needs to be linked to Meat Shield as well. And the aura we run is Haste, and we do this because Haste benefits from having increased aura effect from the Guardian's Blessing, and you want to be as speedy as possible. The other items are Laircast again, and then a Dying Breath, if that's all you can afford. Later on, you want to replace this with a Kingmaker that gives you an insane damage increase by the culling and increased critical strike multiplier you gain. Boots, you want on him is Legacy of Fury for the Scorch. You want to get Scorch effect at least 40%. And then rare gloves that give life regeneration and chaos resistance. Ray Spectre, you want to link with Meat Shield again, and then you can also toss in your Stone Golem in the same setup so that it also benefits from the Meat Shield. And you want to keep your minions alive at all times with Convocation and Automation. Now this is completely fine for any Sanctum level. Your minions will never die in Sanctums, but do be careful about any other content. I have ripped 2 fully equipped Guardians in some temples and in some maps. And one time was because the area level was 81 and my Guardian just got one shot. The other time I didn't have automation up and running and I didn't notice and the Guardian died. So be very careful, be very mindful of your minions. If you have a very expensive Guardian, just unequip him for whatever non-Sanctum content you want to run, and then you can abuse your Stone Golem that you can just recast in your Animate and Blessing setup. The curse you want to run still is Assassin's Mark, and that covers it about the skills. Now, Flasks, very important. They give you speed and damage in the Sanctum. Speed is the biggest defensive you have. Okay, starting with the Quicksilver Flask, that is mostly for running through the zones. Silver Flask can help you run through the zones, but you want it up for damage when you need the damage. A Diamond Flask to give you crit, and then also a Sulfur Flask that gives you increased damage. Once you're comfortable with not using a Life Flask again, put it in a Xeri's Promise, use the enchantment increased effect, and you gain no charges during effect. The important of the two lines is the elemental damage gained. You want to have an 8% roll, and the physical damage does not matter as much. Let's talk about jewels. We've already mentioned the Militant Faith, but there are some other great sources of power for this build. One, a Watcher's Eye. With the gain physical damage as extra lightning damage while affected by Wrath effect. This is the single best one-stat jewel you could get. You want to have a Corrupted Blood immunity jewel with any other useful stats. Then there's Balance of Terror. Now this is an insanely valuable jewel that gives you just an insane amount of physical damage as an extra random element, with the condition that you cast Elemental Weakness in the past 10 seconds. Now the way I do this is I weapon swap and I have Elemental Weakness in my offhand. I cast this, swap back to reactivate my automation, then I have this great damage boost for the next 10 seconds. In those 10 seconds, the boss dies. There's also all elemental resistances on it, so very useful to cap out. The other jewels are just generic damage. Ideally, you want to have quadruple crit multi-jewels, but any increased damage that applies, any critical strike multiplier that applies, so to spells, to lightning skills, and so on. A way to scale your build further is with cluster jewels. And on medium-sized cluster jewels for brands, there is the Remarkable Notable. And this makes it so that brand skills have a chance to create an additional brand, which is 35%. So with 3 of these, you are able to apply both of your brands with just 1 click. This in a sense doubles your action speed while fighting. The other notables you want to pair it with is either Grand Design or Seeker Runes, but it's also alright if you only get brand loyalty. 1 jewel you place in a cluster jewel socket, the other 2 into a large cluster jewel. That large cluster jewel should either be a lightning or an elemental damage cluster jewel, and the best notable is Snowstorm and then Prismatic Heart, but also Doriani's Lesson, Sadist and Overshock are fine. Make sure that you can reach them by pathing straight towards the jewel sockets. So now you know how to transition your Surfcaster Penance Brander into a full power charge stacking monster that can take on any Sanctum setup at any level. And from here, I'll leave it up to you to improve your character and make it as strong as you possibly can. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment, like and subscribe, follow me on Twitch and join my Discord. I hope to catch you soon with videos about making currency and crafting in Path of Exile, and I wish you the best. See ya.